diligent, and loyal service. And thank you, as well as congratulate you and wish you today. Everyone appreciates everything that in their life. It's a day that everyone acknowledges the value and importance of women in their lives. I'm sure you will all agree that nothing in life comes without hard work. Individually, the family, work, community, church, forevermore. You will still remember the advice from mom and dad, grandparents, uncles, aunties, home before you depart the UK to join as a member of the Fijian Servicewomen UK. Honesty, hard work, discipline, spiritual teachings, and these things will always be there with us, and we must at all costs. And this is what I guess will always define you as a member of the Fijian Service Women UK. For Fiji and for developing countries as a whole, this calendar event is essentially a time to celebrate and reflect on progress made by women and girls nationally, regionally, and globally. This year's commemoration event centers on celebrating the tremendous efforts by women and girls around the world, shaping a more equal future and recovery from the pandemic. All for women's rights, decision making in all areas of life, to build back better within politics, parliaments, local governance, civil society, social, education, health, and legal services, as well as ending all forms of violence against women and girls. The attainment of gender equality and the crucial pillars that tend to build sustainable development. Fiji, together with other developing countries and a strong advocate of gender and development, in support of the four focus areas of the gender development pertaining to women's economic empowerment, women in leadership, ending violence against women and girls, and gender and climate change. COVID-19 recovery and women's leadership is affecting every aspect of social, public, and political life. Indeed, the very fabric of social norms have been impacted by the pandemic. Frontline workers are predominantly women and face significant risks. Increasingly, women and girls are confronted with domestic violence, care duties, unemployment, and poverty, exacerbating existing socio-economic inequalities. The pandemic has unfortunately threatened to hold back hard won effort at reducing the barriers to women's effective participation and leadership in public life. The critical role of women's leadership in responding to the pandemic and preparing for future equitable recovery should be recognized and built upon. It is vital to involve those onset, the leadership and participation of women in the design, implementation, delivery, and monitoring of COVID-19 recovery processes, laws, policies, and budgets at all levels of decision making. The global health crisis has no doubt affected the world, but recent studies have shown that the most vulnerable women and children are the most affected. In advancing these issues, particularly those that pertain to women empowerment, and on a more personal note, and due to the restriction by the global health crisis, the Commission in London has had engagements with prospective stakeholders, including the Commonwealth Secretary, as well as community leaders, dealing on pertinent issues including women and trade, women and climate change, domestic violence, etc. At the grassroots level, respective engagements and discussions on women and gender issues remain at the forefront of all dialogue and engagements. The global inclusive women empowerment remains an issue streamlined across all the mission programs and initiatives. Discussions have essentially been multifaceted, including church leaders, community groups in the UK, and the whole family involvement initiatives, as well as government agencies. On behalf of the government of Fiji and its people, we wish to appreciate and acknowledge all the women that have been instrumental in the various fields and sectors, particularly in the area of defense, significant sector underpinning relations between Fiji and UK. There is certainly no recipe for success. Such requires commitment to the vision, perseverance, and commitment, and teamwork are pertinent to achieving success. Nakabagalevu and Commonwealth.
So, Marlo, and thank you very much, Your Excellency, Mr. Tikolevu. Thank you for this. Thank you, sir, for your words. And I understand that the ambassador will be heading off shortly as well because he has a prior engagement. So thank you for taking the time to come to be here with us. We also have this evening, so speaking next in our event, we have Pastor Marcia. I'm sure I've introduced her before, the CEO of Spirit Embassy. We often ask ourselves why the need of the blessing, and I think it is, as Fijians, as part of our culture, it's where we stood up from, if understanding where we come from, and our background, most of all, our faith is what moves the majority of us. And we are honored to have here Pastor Marcia, ladies and gentlemen, to bless us and encourage us, not only to women who are physically, mentally, and emotionally strong, but to give us spiritual guidance, especially at such a time as this that we are going through as women. Pastor Marcia.
Thank you so much. Hello. Can you all hear me?
Hi, Pastor Marcia.
Yes,
Lovely to see you.
Yes.
Good morning.
It's an amazing. Hello.
Hello,
It is such an amazing time to be here, and I just want to thank you so much for this opportunity because I don't take this very lightly. And listening to the majority of what has been said about Fiji women and your culture and your background, and knowing where you've come from, how many strides you've taken, and the amount of work that you've put into having this program for us, I'm so delighted to be a part of it. So I want to first thank you so much for having me here. And it is so encouraging to see different people as well from different walks of life that come in and also look at what you have done as a community, as a country, as a great example.
We can hear you, ma'am.
She's muted.
Oh, hello. Can you hear me now? I do apologize. Yes, it is so amazing to be here. So first of all, I want to just say thank you so much for having me here. I don't take this lightly. It is a great privilege and a great honor to be amongst people who have made great impact and those that are willing to learn, those that are from the Fiji background, Fiji community. It is remarkable. I've listened to some of the things that have been brought up previously, where you've started from and where you are, and having your ambassador here as well. And, it is just so amazing. This is one of a special kind, especially on a day like this, which is a International Women's Day, where we recognize women from different walks of life and from different places. So I just want to delve into it, just looking at the time, knowing that the first thing that came to mind when I was thinking of this platform was, I know we have something in the world saying we need to choose to challenge. But in as much as we may think about it, we are looking at it in this way. We're breaking this down as a challenge. However, I would like to say it is something not of a challenge, but something women can look at and say, we have the ability to cause changes. Okay, because if you look at how far you have come, the milestones and everything that you have prepared, everything that you have gone through, and you have trailblazed in different industries, you know, in different careers, in different professions, this means the change can be imminent. And why do I say that? I look at the Fijian women that have started off, have trailblazed for others to come in. And this is not depending on the color of your skin, the texture of your hair, or what you physically look like, but what is within you. So what is in with you, as if you've received something of great impact and of great power, something that will bless you. The only thing I know of is the enablement from the Holy Spirit. Now, I may speak to people that may not know about Jesus. They may not know about the Holy Spirit, but there's something that comes when you receive Christ that is deposited in you, in every fiber of your being and in your DNA and in your thought pattern. I'll go on to tell you about this because it says you have the ability to cause changes, to effect changes. Why? As women, we are nurtured in such a way that we carry things, we incubate. You know, some of us, okay, we've had children, we are mothers, we know the process of having pregnancy and birthing something out. And what will happen in that instance is when we birth things out and we have the ability to carry things, we have the ability to cause changes. So when you receive Christ, you receive every fiber of his being. You are a member of his body. That is in the book of Ephesians 4:30. It says, we are members of his body. So when you go, you understand it is by the Holy Spirit. It is by the leading of the Holy Spirit. Amen. It is something that, you know, I have received an ability. And the only thing I can ask you to propel yourself to receive an external ability is by you getting into that intimate place with the Holy Spirit. Because you will be able to do everything. In the book of Jeremiah, it says, for I knew you as you were knitted in your mother's womb. I knew the thoughts and the plans that I had towards you. So there's something you as a woman have been specifically created for in this time and in this season. Why are you in existence now? One may ask. You may look at yourself and discredit yourself because maybe you think, look at my age. Look at what I've acquired or what I have not acquired, be it education, be it marriage, be it children. Consider not those things because you have a greater ability in you. You have something on the inside that is so unique to your imprint. Your voice print activates specific things according to your DNA, what you have been knitted and created for. So never compare yourself to any other woman, but instead have the lifting of another woman's trophy, of their crown. Because in doing that, we all shine. You may have a position in a business organization, or maybe you may even be in the military against a male counterpart in the same career or in the same position. But remember, you have a unique and specific gift that you have been created for. And you never look at your gift and downgrade yourself by comparing yourself to the next person. Why? Because he says, I know the thoughts and the plans I have towards you. And you have to walk in that gifting. You have to walk in that calling, because there is a specific reason why you are on this earth at this specific time right now. I was listening to one of the CEOs that started off in the UK's national rail services. For the first time, she became a CEO, but when she applied for that job, she was somebody who was doing ticketing. And when she started doing ticketing, the manager that she had was even embarrassed to bring her to the other work colleagues because she was female. And she said, I will work my way no matter what it is. Never discredit me because I'm a woman. And she didn't only demonstrate that by her words, but by her actions. She knew she had something in her, an ability, a gifting, a calling, and a purpose, which is a divine inspiration that comes from your creator. So if you don't know about this Jesus, you will get to know him, that when you spend time with him and you are intimate with him, he will lead you and he will guide you, because the Holy Spirit is your intercessor. He is your guide. He is your advocate in time of need. At any given time, you will find yourself in a challenging situation as a woman, but you have that very nature. Why was it that through Eve, so many children were birthed? There's a reason, because we have that natural intuition of birthing, of incubating and birthing new things. Because for every man to be there, yes, he may be the head, he may be the leader, he may be the crown, but there's an influencer, because the head has a neck to turn it from left to right. So you have to know how to use your neck in certain places. You never downplay yourself, and you never look at yourself as somebody who is inadequate because there's a male person. But that is needless to say that we are to be rebellious or to feel that we can be above anyone. No, there's a reason there is a hierarchy and a structure. And I love organizations that are led by women, because in most cases, they understand, they have empathy or sympathy, they have a way of nurturing, because that is how you have been created. Despite whether you've been biologically, physically a mother or not, it is in your DNA. The Bible says, ought not this woman, being a seed of Abraham? Where you come from is so important. And for you to be able to do anything, the Bible tells us you are more than conquerors. What does it mean? It means there are things that you need to conquer. And how do you become somebody who needs to conquer things? Of course, if there's something to be conquered, it means there are going to be trials, there are going to be challenges. But what do? We choose to change. And every woman is unique. You are specifically unique. And we look at women in the front line, in the marketplace. Okay, I will give you an example of a wonderful woman who I get to call mom as a spiritual mom from my understanding of the word. She is a mentor, somebody I look up to. She leads in business. She leads in family life. She leads in ministry. So it is an important thing to have somebody who will mentor you and will give you guidance as a woman, because they understand. Today, Pastor Marcia needs to be a wife, or she needs to be a mom to her children, or she needs to put on her business hat. How many hats do women carry? How many do they have? Any organizational structure will always have a woman that will be in that body. And that body, we know, as we are saying, we are members of his body. So never downplay yourself, women. I always pray that we have more women that are willing to propel and move forward and give all extraordinary examples to the young ladies we have today. We are more than just our facial appearance, more than just our beautiful smiles, more than just our bodies. We have an ability on the inside of us to propel and birth things into being. And that comes by the inspiration of the Holy Spirit. It comes by your DNA because God has created you in that way. We know nowadays we have so many things about genders and, equality and things that may come in a different aspect, but we look into the word. So if you're a woman on this platform today and you want to know more about the Lord Jesus Christ and how you can fulfill your purpose and your calling here on this planet Earth, we also have a platform for the book on intimacy by Prophetess Beverly U. Angel. She was the first woman I saw going into boardrooms and speaking to people with PhDs, EHDs, EFDs, all the HDs you could think of, directing and giving instruction on how to build her bank. The first ever bank owned by a woman in this United Kingdom that was done by somebody of color. And what does that tell you? You have the ability. So you need to have a mentor. You need to have somebody who will guide you, who will give you something and propel you and put fire under your feet. So I just want to say thank you so much for everyone who's listening in, and anyone who has any question about anything relating to your spiritual life or your spiritual walk, please do reach out for me. I think we do have people with contact telephone numbers. And I also wanted to give you an opportunity to have a information on mentorship. So if you're looking for somebody to mentor you and you're thinking, well, I don't really know much about this Jesus stuff and this Holy Spirit stuff, I'm a bit skeptical, I don't know. And you just need that coming together with women that are propelling in business, in ministry, and in industries, different walks of industries. We also have that information, and it can be given out to you at a later stage. But we have Core 100. And why it was made core, because it is a sensitive time for people to come in and get other women that have made it, to give examples and to explain. So I don't want to take too much of your time, but it's been amazing to be on this platform. And I'm so excited to hear everything about what has been happening. And thank you so much for giving me an amazing opportunity. But the one thing I will say, remember, you have the ability to cause changes. You do not have to challenge it in a ruthless way, but you have an ability. We've seen women in the past that have come in and did the first time ever to be an aircraft engineer, to be the first ever pilot, to be the first ever person to create a business that stands and still stands. And we can do it with the ability that we have been created within ourselves. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Marcia.
Sorry.
Sivia, you're muted. Unmute yourself.
Bear with me. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Brilliant. Thank you. Pastor Mayor, thank you very much for the words of encouragement. Thank you for reminding us that we have it within us. We have this potential to make changes, and make changes for the right reasons, to be inspirational women, to be strong women wherever we are. We often forget, and you're right, sometimes we come in heavy-handed in trying to make impact, but sometimes with the wrong intentions. So thank you for the guidance, and thank you very much for the word of advice. Also, so we're moving on to our program. We'd like to take this opportunity to play a video. What we have done, we have collated some of the greetings from back home in Fiji, from the RFMF back in Fiji, from the women that were about to go out to Golan, from all the most of the Navy that have been posted on all the HMSs that they're serving at, and even locally where most of our medical staff are posted through this to try and help out in the NHS in the COVID support, reaching out to the people wherever they are. So this is a greeting from all of them. So if I could ask Nazhat to play the video, if we could just listen in. Thank you.
Apologies, Vinny, could we skip to the next item? And then
Okay.
we'll come back to the video. I'll let you know when it's ready.
Brilliant. That is fine. So we'd like to take this opportunity to introduce, as I see, Grace Rengio, who will be reading this, a spoken word poem, sharing with us today. So Grace.
Thank you, Auntie Vinny. Sir, mums, ladies and gentlemen, good evening from here in the United Kingdom, and thank you once again for joining us. This is a spoken word poem by Viniana Vunivalu. I am a blaze. I am a woman. I was there in the Garden of Eden when life began. From my womb, mankind was brought forth. Like my creator, life-giving is my purpose. My hips are strong and sensual. My arms lift to praise. My hair is a thing of beauty, and my heart is always ablaze. I am a woman. I have ruled dominions, countries, states, cities, villages, and tribes. I am a wife, a mother, a daughter, a sister, a niece, and a friend. Like my creator, love is my purpose. With love, I bear the pain of birth. With love, I fall on my knees to pray. When I am bruised and nearly broken, when all seems lost and hopeless, with love, I stand, I straighten my back. With firm steps, I walk, and my heart ablaze. I am a woman. I'm an astronaut, a scientist, a doctor, a lawyer, a nurse, and even a teacher. I am likewise a prostitute, a drug dealer, a thief, a murderer, and at the same time, a liar. Like my creator, strength is my purpose. With strength, my loved ones are carried on these shoulders. With strength, I endure the criticism, the inequality, the snide remarks, and many rungs I have stepped on as I rise through the ladder of life. With strength, I walk through the streets to pay my household bills. With beautiful heels I stride, my catwalk cloaked with thick furs of hope. Whether I live in a mansion or in a dark corner of a street, I am ablaze. I am a woman. So teach me when I'm young. Speak inspirational words over my life. Tell me that I'm phenomenal, extraordinary, and anointed. Make me believe that I can do all things. Show me the path of righteousness and plant the seed of visionary in my life. Strengthen my foundation with love. Guide me with your wisdom. You, O strong woman, be ablaze, light my path. You, I, she, we are women. Vinaka.
Thank you, Grace. The video is ready, Vinny.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, so let's just hear the greetings from all the women across the world.
Happy International Women's Day from the Republic of Fiji Military Forces. Bula!
Rachel Lunaveva of the Royal Navy Pre-Deployment Training and Mounting Cell. And I just want to wish every strong, beautiful, dedicated women out there a happy International Women's Day.
Aloha, I just wanted to wish all service women a happy International Women's Day.
Happy International Women's Day.
Hi, I'm Corporal Miller Anderson from the Armed Forces Careers Office in Lincoln. Happy International Women's Day.
From the Police Battalion 1 Yorks. Just want to wish you all a happy International Women's Day.
Happy International Women's Day to all Fijis, UK and veterans.
Happy International Women's Day! Happy International Women's Day!
Happy International Women's Day from Lydna and Lacey.
Happy International Women's Day.
Happy International Women's Day.
Happy International Women's Day from JTEC, Northgate HQ.
Happy International Women's Day.
From the Food Service and Training HMS Raleigh.
Happy International Women's Day.
Happy International Women's Day. Today we celebrate women's achievements, we fight against bias, and we work towards equality. Challenge for change. Happy International Women's Day.
Happy International Women's Day from the writers at HMS Drake UPO.
Happy International Women's Day.
From the Errands at HMS Scotland, we wish you a happy International Women's Day. Hashtag choose to challenge.
Happy International Women's Day.
Happy International Women's Day from HMS Montrose.
Happy International Women's Day from the writers from HMS Drake UPO. We are so proud of you. Have a good one. Cheers.
Hola, my name is Masulini. I'm based at the FBO 798 in Hikaya, Kabul. I would like to wish you all a happy International Women's Day and may God bless you all. Thank you.
Happy International Women's Day from HMS Nelson UPO.
Hi, this is Chief Janine Potts. I am based in Navy Command Headquarters in Portsmouth. I've been in the Royal Navy for 20 years, and I just wanted to take this opportunity to wish all the women out there in defense, supporting defense, a happy International Women's Day. Happy Women's Day!
Amazing. Thank you very much. I know Janine very well, and that's actually her in real life as well. I wish you could say it was otherwise, but she's always very bubbly. One of the best women I've come across in my career in the military. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, a wonderful woman. Mom, thank you very much for honoring us by being here to come and speak to us. Commodore Eleanor Ablett. Commodore Ablett, even though I've introduced her before, I'd just like to know that Commodore Ablett has done a lot for women as well in the Royal Navy. You know, she was recognized and was granted, she was awarded, a member of the Order of the British Empire in 2014 for the work that she did. And also she was recognized for her work for the Navy's diversity and inclusion, and was acknowledged when she received the We Are the City's Rising Star Champion Award in 2018. Without further ado, Commodore Ablett.
Thank you so much, Vinny, for that really warm welcome and for inviting me to come and join you for your celebrations tonight, International Women's Day and Commonwealth Day together. Hopefully you can hear me clearly. I'll do a quick check.
Yes, Mom, you can.
Great, excellent. So I've been working from home in my home in South Wales through a lot of this pandemic, and the Wi-Fi is not perfect, but hopefully it will stick with me tonight. I couldn't think of a more fitting way to celebrate International Women's Day and Commonwealth Day than coming and joining you, the Fijian Servicewomen UK, and your esteemed guests. And, you know, congratulations on a fantastic panel of guests tonight. And also so far, and I'm sure it will continue, on a really joyous occasion. I really appreciated Pastor Marcia's speech to us, and also that fantastic poem, and the video was brilliant. Thank you. I'm a passionate advocate of the power of networks in the armed forces, bringing people with shared backgrounds, characteristics, or beliefs together for their mutual benefit, and also to support the armed forces more widely. And as you mentioned, I've had the great privilege of serving as the commanding officer of HMS Raleigh, our new entry training establishment for the Royal Navy, where every sailor starts their journey in service. And I'd already witnessed the positive impact and contribution made by our servicewomen and servicemen from the Commonwealth, in the ships that I've served in the Navy. But really it was in Raleigh where I got to see up close the determination, the commitment, and indeed the sacrifice that those from the Commonwealth who heed the United Kingdom's call to serve in our armed forces, you know, the sacrifice that they pay. So it's really great to be here and speak to you this evening. And I hope that some of my experiences will be of interest and benefit your event this evening. So I am one of the most senior women serving in the Royal Navy today. It's a fact that I'm personally very proud of course, but also slightly dismayed about. It encouraged me to set up a professional network for naval service women a few years ago to help women, to help themselves and each other, and also the Royal Navy, so that we can attract, recruit and retain more women in the future. And our motto, very similar to FSUK, is share, inspire, empower. I think those are really strong words, and I see yours is encourage, inspire, empower. Fantastic. And of course, the good news is that defence itself, UK defence, is also determined to improve our diversity and inclusion, and to improve the lived experience of all our service personnel. I think that's really important, opening up different career opportunities for everyone and really investing in our people. You probably detect that I quite like where I work for the Ministry of Defence. But actually, as a child, I actually didn't really like the sea. I much preferred swimming in a pool. My father was in the Royal Air Force, as you mentioned. He also worked in the Sultan of Oman's Air Force. And really, I didn't do very much in terms of interest in the sea. I wasn't a sailor, but I was really drawn to the idea of serving in the military, as I'm sure many on this call were. For me, I was organised, strong-willed, and I was up for an adventure. So here I came. And a couple of specific things brought me to the Navy, really, inspired by a very enthusiastic recruiter. I'm sure other people will have had a similar experience. And I think it's down to all of us to share our experiences and inspire the next generation to step forward and consider a career in the armed forces. And even more so for women, I think. And also back when I joined the Navy in 1993, women had recently started going to sea. So we had the same career opportunities as our male colleagues. And that was really modern and exciting to me. People quite often ask me what it was like joining the Royal Navy back in the early 1990s. And I think actually it was very similar to today for new joiners. You didn't have an expectation that your gender would make any difference to your job, but it did in a couple of ways. And I just wanted to talk about those a little. I think this will resonate with my Fijian colleagues as well, because back in 1990, there were very few of us. So my entry, there were just 28 women in 190 going through Britannia Royal Naval College, the Officer College. And you had to learn how to handle yourself. I kind of say that it was a bit like a girl with lots of brothers. And there was another noticeable difference back then, of course, as there is today. Career interviews with the career manager often got round to the question of motherhood. And they don't ask our male colleagues that question. But of course, practically speaking, we go to sea, we need to be able to deploy. And so being pregnant and giving birth does interrupt our ability to do some of those things in a way that becoming a father doesn't really. But actually today we really value the contribution of our service women, and we offer support and coaching. And I think that that's because of the people who went before us, particularly the mothers who've served in the armed forces before us and were able to influence policy and have that adopted. And I think that's a really positive thing. I've really enjoyed my career in the Royal Navy. I'm a logistics officer by trade. And I always said that I would stay for as long as I was enjoying it and as long as I was really making a difference, adding value. I think that's very important. So I'm now into my 28th year of service, and I'm still smiling and hopefully still making a positive contribution. I've had such a wonderful career. In addition to being in command at HMS Raleigh, which really was a high point, I've had the opportunity to serve in frigates and destroyers, amphibious craft, an aircraft carrier, although a slightly smaller one than the ones we've got today. Yeah, I've been out on joint operations in Iraq and had the real privilege of supporting the first Sea Lord for 2 years. And right now I'm designing a new approach in defence, strategic workforce planning, to make sure that we really have the right people with the right skills at the right time to do all of the things that we're required to do around the globe now and today. So just a really great career opportunities. And through all of this, I've learned that you are most effective and productive, more likely to be personally happier and healthier, I think, if you're doing something you find fulfilling. And that's why I found Pastor Marcia's points earlier really resonated with me. I'm also very lucky to have the support of a wonderful partner, my husband, Simon. He left the Navy 9 years ago now, having served for 19 years as a weapon engineer. And he went to pursue his dream to be an outdoor sports coach and leader. But he supports me in every way possible. I'm a big fan of also supporting International Men's Day, which is in November. I encourage it because there's some really wonderful allies out there, and my husband is certainly one of them. He keeps me grounded. He gives me reliable advice, and he helps me when self-doubt creeps in, because it doesn't matter if you're a Commodore or if you're an AB, you know, we all have those moments where doubt does set in. So it's good to have someone supporting you. But as I look back on my career, and I do get to do this a little bit on International Women's Day, it's a wonderful day. The achievement I am most proud of is setting up and leading the Naval Service Women's Network. It's going from strength to strength today. I'm pleased to say the current co-chairs, Commander Rachel Smallwood and Chief Petty Officer Marie Hallam, have just taken it to another level. But back when I was promoted to Commander in 2010, I was really surprised to find how few women were there with me. And I think, like many of us, you know, I had my head down, I was doing my job. I was, you know, sort of a wife and sister and daughter, all of those roles that we take to slightly take for granted. And I think I missed the fact that so many other women weren't staying in the Navy, they were leaving. So I looked into what would be the best way to try to encourage more women to stay and to pursue their dreams. And I decided that a professional network was a really good way to do this without interrupting the chain of command, but having women support each other and the Navy as well. So today we've got a target audience for the network of around 3,000 service women, and that's across the Royal Navy, obviously, but also the Royal Marines Band Service, the Royal Naval Reserve and the Royal Fleet Auxiliary. And the network runs events and courses. It maintains strong supportive networks online, which is really good in this pandemic, that we've been able to stay in touch with each other through these kind of means, but also in person around the country. This week, we're about to hold the second annual awards event, which is another new addition to the things that we're able to do, recognizing women and also the men who support service women professionally. We provide input to policy development, and our collective voice is valued by our chain of command. I think that's a really important thing that we've been able to achieve. And of course, we seek opportunities to work with other associations and networks. It was great to see Chief Janine there on the message there. We do a lot of work with the Commonwealth Network, and she is a wonderful role model and inspiration, and such a bubbly person. So it was nice to see her on your video. And the thing that always amazes me is that we're doing all of this by volunteers. And I know it's going to be the same for you as well, Vinny. We're volunteering to do this on top of our busy day jobs. But it's just amazing how much you can achieve for a good cause when you're passionate about it. And I can see that definitely in FSUK as well. So just to conclude then, thank you so much for inviting me to come and share your celebration tonight and give you a sense of the things that I've achieved over my career. I wish every success to the Fijian Servicewomen UK as you seek to support your colleagues working across defence, enhancing the really, really valued contribution that you make to the UK Armed Forces. Thank you so much for inviting me to come and join you. I've really enjoyed it so far.
Thank you. Commodore Ablett, thank you very much for the very kind words. With everyone listening in, we will have an opportunity towards the end of when our speakers have spoken. So if you have any questions, please put your questions through on the chat, and we'll pose the questions across to the speakers towards the end, if that's okay. I'm just going to have Nieta, who has been working really hard on the FSUK website to try and show us. We're actually launching it as well today on what's available on the FSUK website. Nieta.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, good evening, highly esteemed panelists and ladies and gentlemen. I'll get right onto it. As you can see, we've just, this is a soft launch of the Fijian Servicewomen UK website. So you can see it on www.fijianservicewomen.org. This has been built within 2 days. So the girls and the committee have been working hard on the content, lots of sleepless nights. And we are also thankful for Graphic Media for creating our website. There are things that are sealed off for members only, things like mentoring, particularly for new recruits and other resources. There'll be publications on it. But as you can see, you're on the home page, so I'll just take you through it. That's the organization's vision: to encourage, inspire, and empower current Fijian servicewomen and veterans to reach their maximum potential through the platform, the FSUK, and to unite them to address issues that matter to them. And you can see the vision that's there and the values. This will just be a very quick virtual tour, and you've got the Empower, and under Empower we've got Celebrating Women and Business Network, which is for veterans that have businesses. So it's creating like a virtual marketplace where they can sort of share contacts and resources. And I love what the Commodore was sharing in terms of how their network was impacting policy. So this impact thing also has a discussion forum where there'll be discussions on matters pertaining to servicewomen. Again, the aspects of it that are accessible only to servicewomen. So that's all from the website. Back to you, Vinny.
Thank you, Nieta. Like Nieta said, there was a lot of sleepless nights, and to resounding to what Commodore Ablett said earlier, it is truly a voluntary work, and the girls have put in a lot of work, and we're just glad to have you all join us as well this evening. So without further ado, I would like to take this opportunity, and I know I've introduced her initially, but I'd like to say it again. We welcome Ms. Bernadette Lewis. Ms. Bernadette Lewis, who is the Surgeon General for the Telecommunications Organization, Commonwealth Telecommunications Organizations, I'm sorry, and the first ever female to hold that role in 120 years since the organization has stood. Ladies and gentlemen, Madam Secretary General, Bernadette Lewis. Mom, can you just get you just to unmute your mic, please? Sorry.
Yes, good afternoon, good evening, good day to everyone. I am just so very happy to be part of this commemoration of Commonwealth Day and International Women's Day by the Fijian Service Women of the United Kingdom. And I thank you for the opportunity to be part of such a distinguished panel with such formidable women. I am really and truly honored to be here this evening, today. And the theme for the International Women's Day is Women in Leadership, Achieving an Equal Future in a COVID-19 World. But I believe that the theme could easily have been Women in Leadership, Achieving an Equal Future. Because our journey to achieving an equal future has been slow and arduous, and the COVID-19 pandemic is but one of very many challenges that has the potential to erode the gains that women have painstakingly made in the last century. There's no doubt in my mind that other challenges will emerge in the future, and we have to find ways to maintain our trajectory of progress. In Genesis, the first book of the Bible, it says that God created mankind in his own image and likeness. Male and female created he them. The sentence indicates that there's a distinction between the male and the female, but there's no hint of inequality, no suggestion of subjugation, no implication of inferiority, and absolutely no supposition that there should be disrespect between the male and the female. But we live in a world where mostly men walk the corridors of power, they hold the leadership positions, and they are at the forefront of nations and major organizations, including the military. And the mere fact that there's a need for an International Women's Day is the testimony of a cry for the recognition that women have the intellectual capacity and competencies to be equally represented in leadership positions, that women must also have the opportunity to hold leadership positions, and they too must be able to walk the corridors of power with their male counterparts, because each gender has an important role. They have important traits that enrich families, organizations, and societies. McKinsey and Company published a study in 2007, and that is titled Women Matter. And this study demonstrated the link between the presence of women in corporate management teams and companies' organizational and financial performance. Their 2008 Women Matter 2 study, with the tagline, Female Leadership, a Competitive Edge for the Future, it states that some leadership behaviors, which are more frequently applied by women than men in management teams, prove to enhance corporate performance, hence promoting gender diversity and leadership variety is of strategic importance for companies, and I add, the military. Also, So women have an important role to play in building a progressive military organization, other organizations, other types of organizations and nations. So I commend every woman and every Fijian servicewoman on her choice to join the service. Each one of you is in a position to bring valuable traits, perspectives, and approaches that are peculiar to women for a truly effective military. The 2020 McKinsey and Company report states that between 2015 and 2020, we made slow but steady progress in women's representation in leadership positions. But a broken rung at the first step up to management continues to hold women back. And now the COVID-19 crisis is threatening to erase the gains of the past 6 years. So what can we do? So firstly, I want to focus on what individual women can do by sharing a bit about my personal journey in leadership positions in what used to be, when I joined in 2003, a male-dominated telecommunications or technology field. When I joined the workforce at the start of my career, I was the first female to be admitted to the engineering department of the national telecommunications service provider in Trinidad and Tobago. And later on, I was charged with the responsibility of overseeing the modernization of the entire national network. The 3-year project was executed in 1 year, a feat that the technology provider declared as an industry first. Later, I became the first female technical manager of the Caribbean Association of National Telecommunications Organizations. Then in 2003, I was appointed as the first female Secretary General of the Caribbean Telecommunications Union, another intergovernmental organization. And last year, I was appointed as the Secretary General of the Commonwealth Telecommunications Organization. As you heard, I'm the first female in the organization's 120-year history. Now, I have to say, I don't consider myself to be brilliant. So how did I find myself in these leadership positions in a male-dominated organizations, in a male-dominated industry? And I want to draw on some of the things that I've learned and share them with the participants in this evening's webinar. And the first thing is, whatever you do, do not limit yourselves. Yes, we've heard the pastor speak about the qualities that women possess. Do not limit yourselves. Do not blinker yourselves into a particular role. Look around, scan the environment, see what else is of interest. What else can you contribute to the organization? The second thing is study, hone your craft, know your work well. Be prepared to defend your work because you have studied and you know your craft. Yes? The third thing is to be honest in your dealings with others. Integrity is priceless. Yes? Do not compromise and do not support wrongdoing. Then another thing that I've learned is humility. Be humble, but you can still be confident in your abilities and sure of yourself. Speak up for what is right and proper. Yes? And then remember, your peculiar traits as a woman are as important as those of the men, and that you have every right to sit at the tables where decisions are being taken that change the course of organizations and countries and societies and the world. And lastly, but by no means least, put your faith and trust in God. So that's the first thing. I was drawing from my personal journey over the many years. And the second thing, for the individual, those are the things that the individual woman can do. At the organizational level, we really have to work at changing the old mindsets. They have to be broken. And I want to use the International Women's Day 2021 campaign theme, #ChooseToChallenge. Yes, and as the pastor rightly said, it is not necessarily an overt, forceful challenge, but we could choose to challenge every notion that women are inferior. We should choose to challenge any notion that women could be disrespected with impunity, and choose to challenge the belief that women must be subjugated. This is not what the Creator intended. Let's all choose to challenge the existence of glass ceilings and broken rungs and glass cliffs and old boys club. We have to do our part to break those things. And the last thing we can all do, is generational. You will not see the effects immediately. It has to do with how men and women train up and socialize their children. We need to inculcate the equality of the male and female in our children's collective consciousness. I hope that these few words will help you understand the importance of your participation in a traditionally male-dominated work environment, and the contribution you must make to improving the performance of your organization. And I also just want to add, the Commonwealth Telecommunications organization is committed to using information and communication technologies for promoting gender equality and the rights of women. And I would like to again commend the Fijian servicewomen of the United Kingdom for this marvelous occasion. I've really been blessed by just having been here, and I wish you all every success as you seek to advance the cause of women in a very male-dominated society. I thank you.
Wow. Madam Secretary General, thank you very much for the powerful words, and just having a look at all the remarks that are coming in, absolutely challenging, or even the ones that have spoken before, just helping build us as people and challenging us in a way to think not only of today and what we are going through, but also like the women before us, thinking of the future generation and how we can actually contribute, to making not only equality feasible for us, but equality is something that's actually there in the future of our children. Thank you very much for those words, and those we have been so blessed, and the words of encouragement. Next up on to our speaker, we have the President of the United Nations Human Rights Council, Her Excellency Nazhat Khan. Her Excellency Nazim Khan, who is currently holding office, and she sent us a video to be played. Hopefully we'll be encouraged by her words. Thank you.
Bulavinaka to all of you on International Women's Day. I am very pleased to speak to you today to celebrate the many achievements of women and to take stock of our own lives as women in this journey we are all on to equality, dignity, and equity. Recently, shortly after my election as President of the Human Rights Council, I was asked by a journalist to describe my childhood, my upbringing, and my personal achievements. I found it far harder to respond to questions about myself than I did about the Council or about global human rights. I am not the only woman who finds it hard to talk about myself. We women are brought up to believe that modesty and privacy are feminine virtues. Yet the answers to our own progress as women who have achieved progress in a world dominated by men, especially in the armed forces or in diplomacy, lie in the way we were brought up, in the way we attained an education, in the way that we remain true to our own courses despite institutional and cultural barriers. So we women need to start talking about ourselves. In doing so, we unlock the doors not only to an understanding of how women's roles are prescribed by society, but also to success for many girls who may experience the same barriers and who look to us for inspiration and hope. I was born and brought up in Fiji, the descendant of a family which has its roots in Pakistan and India. I went to school at Suva Grammar School, and I was 10 years old when Fiji became independent in 1970. I recall the sense of pride we all shared, all the people of different communities in Fiji, when we looked to a future which celebrated not only economic progress, but also respect for each other and for the diverse community which thrives in Fiji. Indeed, I recall during all my upbringing, this celebration of diversity that is uniquely Fiji. I also recall my mother telling me that all the leaders representing Fiji at the handover of power, from the British Crown to the Fijian government, were male, and that one day this would have to change. And indeed, it has. I was also one of 4 sisters. We have no brothers. My parents taught us that the road to independence and empowerment was education, and insisted on a university education for each of us. And indeed, there was no need to persuade us, brought up as we were on books, plays, and poetry. I went to university in the United Kingdom at the age of 17 to study law. My younger sister also left Fiji for the United Kingdom to study medicine at St. Andrews University in Scotland. Our years in the United Kingdom exposed us not only to independence, but also to freedom of thought, to friends from every conceivable country of the world, and to a world beyond Fiji. Yet Fiji was always in our minds and in our thoughts. It was not only the land of my parents, but it was also a country which celebrated diversity of culture and of thought, and which needed young graduates to help to build the world of post-colonial progress. I returned to Fiji to practice law in 1983, a qualified barrister at law from Inner Temple, London. I started work at the office of the DPP as the first woman prosecutor in Fiji. It was a steep learning curve, not only because of the stresses of the work, but because the first woman in any workplace must experience and dismantle the male ethos of that workplace. She must object to the posters in the office with underclothed women used to sell cars. She must object to the inappropriate language describing rape victims. She must protest the bullying cross-examination in court of child incest victims. She who must insist on eligibility for promotion when she returns from maternity leave. And she who must insist on a sexual harassment policy for the office. Think for a minute what it must have been like for the first woman taken in the British Armed Forces as a soldier, and pay tribute to her. She broke barriers so that every woman who comes after her can survive with dignity. I was the only woman prosecutor in 1983. In 1999, when I left the office to become a judge, the ratio of men and women in the DPP's office was 50%. And it remains the same, with women occasionally in the majority. This is progress. When I returned to Fiji as a lawyer, there were fewer than 10 women lawyers in Fiji. When I returned to Fiji in recent years to conduct ethics training for new legal practitioners, I find that there are more women law graduates than men. Within my generation, the law is seen as a logical career choice for women. And now, for the women in the armed forces, your numbers are growing the world over. women of the armed forces are especially doing a sterling job as peacekeepers. This is progress. But we still have barriers to dismantle. Many are dismantled by individual women determined to succeed and be treated as equals. But many are dismantled by a global determination to build an equal and more equitable world for all people. A world which recognizes the historical disadvantage suffered by women and of the intersectional forms of discrimination suffered by women of color, women with disabilities, and women who live in poverty. One of the most constructive visits to Fiji by a special mandate holder was the visit of the independent expert on the rights of persons with albinism. She advised Fiji of the special disadvantage suffered by children with albinism and by women and girls living with albinism. She taught us that a national policy on albinism must be based on the lived experiences of those women and girls. And this is what the Human Rights Council can be at its best. An institution that improves the lives of women and girls through constructive engagement and concretely promotes and protects human rights. For this reason, I am particularly honored to serve as the 15th president of the Council and only its 3rd female president. This is a tremendous opportunity for me, one paved by my female predecessors. And it is also an opportunity to show all, particularly women and girls, that women taking on positions of leadership should be the norm, not the exception. In this context, I wish to inform you that while I am president, the human rights of women and girls will continue to be a priority for the Council. In fact, this year, the Council will be working on multiple projects regarding the human rights of women and girls, each aimed at better understanding the inequities and human rights violations that women experience, and using this understanding to improve their lives. To give only one example, just this past September, the Council adopted a resolution on protecting the human rights of women and girls in conflict and post-conflict situations, which will ensure that this pressing issue is front and center at the Council this year through reporting from the High Commissioner for Human Rights and official discussions among states and other stakeholders. The activities are an important step towards understanding the experiences of women and girls in conflict and post-conflict situations to spur positive change for women and girls. And so it is with gender equality in all its forms. We will never forge change unless we understand what it is like to live in an inequitable world as a woman, where she is forever judged, not as a person with merit or character and experience, but invariably as a mother or a wife or a daughter. I congratulate you on all the progress that you have helped the world to make as women in the British Armed Forces. You are a beacon of light, not just for the women of Fiji, but for the men and women, the boys and girls of the world. The future lies in recognizing the barriers you have experienced as women in the services and in working to ensure that those women who will come after you will not be asked to endure the same. I wish you the very best in your celebrations today. Vinaka Bakalevu.
Back to you, Madam Chair.
Vinaka Bakalevu, to the Madam Ambassador, the President of the Human Rights Council. It just feels like we've just had a feast of encouragement and overflowing, and there's more to come. I don't know about you all, but I'm nearly in tears, so encouraged, so humbled. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce the next speaker from our neck of the wood, but who is currently being seconded to United Nations Women in New York from the Australian Air Force, Wing Commander Lani Kennealy. Mom, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the short notice. Thank you very much for just being really friendly and making, you know, all this networking and everything that we're doing feel like we are approaching a friend. So we are so humbled, we are so thankful. So we give this time for you to share your experience and your journey with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those very kind words. Can I have my presentation shared now, please? I'll kick off anyway. I just want to say a big thank you to the Fijian Servicewomen UK Network for actually extending this invitation for me to speak today. This special day, International Women's Day. You know, it's a shame that it's only on International Women's Day that we see so many events occurring where women are getting together and sharing their experiences, and particularly their lived experiences. You know, that last presentation we just heard, there is nothing more powerful than sharing the lived experiences and learning from those lived experiences. So I've been really humbled, you know, by the presentations that we've already heard today, and certainly by the women that are clearly representative and motivated in this network. So again, thank you very much. When Vinny asked me to speak about my career, I thought two things. I thought, wow, that's going to be a long and boring interaction for everybody. So rather than give you a diarised version of my career from start to finish, I thought what I would focus on much more is the work that I have been doing, particularly around increasing the participation of women in the military. And certainly the current position that I'm in, working for UN Women. And I'm going to say right from the get-go, anyone who's in the military will know how hard it is to have conversations about gender and women's participation with their male colleagues. So I'm sure you can all imagine how it was for me when I walked into UN Women at the beginning of last year and was surrounded by women who knew what I was talking about, didn't want me to have to explain gender to them or challenge, you know, didn't have to answer challenges about why it's important for women to have equal participation. So that's been a really wonderful dream position for me to take on. Noting that COVID impacted last year, I sadly have been working from home since March last year. So I've only had two months in the office at UN Women, but they have been amazing. It's been an amazing 16 months, irrespective of that. So with no further ado, can I please have the next slide? So where did it all start for me? So I grew up, yes, definitely in your neck of the woods, in northwest Tasmania, in a small farming community of about 200 people. I wanted to join the Air Force from an early age because, well, basically where I grew up, there wasn't a lot of opportunities for me to do anything else. And my family couldn't afford for me to go to university. So I saw joining the military as an opportunity to kind of spread my wings and, you know, leave Tasmania and start a bit of a career. It was an interesting start because I brought the paperwork home. I was only 17 and my dad wouldn't sign the paperwork. He didn't want me to leave home. But my mum signed the paperwork and she put the wind underneath my wings and supported my decisions. And I didn't realise it at the time, but as I reflect, I now know that my mum was the first feminist that I ever encountered. And sadly, she passed away about 2 years later. So she never really got the chance to see how I've progressed, but I completely value her giving me that push to challenge myself. Next slide, please. So in the interest of time, I won't go through this timeline in detail, but basically this covers the evolution of the Royal Australian Air Force. And as you can see, I've popped a red star in there because that's about when I joined the organisation. And we'd only just graduated our first female pilots. And at the time I joined, women were not permitted to serve in all units. In 2016, that changed, and I was working in the area that had part to play in that. And I'm really pleased to say that 2 years ago, we graduated our two very first fast jet pilots. So it's been a long journey for the women in the Royal Australian Air Force, but we now have those equal opportunities to serve in all units. That doesn't mean it's been easy or that we have huge representation in some of those masculine roles. Next slide, please. So I thought I would use photos to depict some of my my experiences today. So I actually joined the military as a communications operator. So I joined as a troop. And, you know, recruits was a really interesting challenge for me because when I finally got there, I had just turned 18 And I hadn't really been exposed to an adult learning environment, hadn't really been exposed to being a minority, in a large group of males. So it was a really challenging time, but it was also a time where I really, got my foundations, and most importantly, it's when I met my first network of friends in that photo up on the top right. And you will see as I go through my presentation today that developing friendships and networks has been such a critical part of my my career. And not only the friendship part, but also I attribute that a lot to my successes and achievements, because it's, women empowering other women and supporting other women when the system doesn't have the solutions necessarily for us. Work-life balance has been a big part of my career. That's my family on the left. That's about 15 years ago, that photo. So everyone's grown up a little bit now. But I did take a career break to have my children, and because the policies weren't really that flexible to allow me to continue to work full time and spend that time with my family. Gladly, we have developed much more flexible kind of work approaches, and certainly with COVID, we've definitely developed flexibility. But work-life balance is something that I've always managed and tried to prioritize alongside my career as well. And the last image there is sport. Sport has been a huge part of my life. I've played hockey since I was a child. And I will say that when I went to recruits, a lot of women I speak to now are very worried about the fitness standards and things like that. That wasn't an issue for me. Time management was an issue for me. We didn't have mobile phones back then, and it took me 4 weeks to have enough time to line up to ring my family at the phone box. My parents had thought I'd gone missing, but I just simply didn't, I had to learn time management, and that was something that, as a military woman, as I'm sure you can all imagine, is a skill set that we all have. Next slide, please. So I'm going to skip a lot because I did a lot of jobs, but I commissioned in 1999 and did some university studies, of course, alongside that. And then in 2012, the Australian Defence Force went through a review called the Broderick Review, and it was the review into the treatment of women in the ADF. And at that time, our Chief of Air Force put together a team, and I was handpicked to go into this team. And we started to look at the findings in that report. And there were a lot of, you may have read the report, but there were a lot of, there were like 24 recommendations in there that were really key all across the board in terms of barriers to women's participation and progression in the Air Force, or in the Australian Defence Force, I should say. So that was the beginning of my journey around looking at women's participation. In 2014, I was appointed as the inaugural gender advisor to my Chief of Air Force. And as part of that, I was provided some really excellent opportunities. The first one, if you look at the bottom line of my photographs there, I actually got to go to the Gender Academy of the International Labour Organization. And it was there where I met there were 400 women, mainly women, at this event. But it was the first time I got to hear the lived experiences of women globally. So it was a global event. And it was such an eye-opening experience for me, and it really enriched my understanding of the kind of the global challenges that women have, and particularly, it wasn't a military event. It was all sorts of things that were discussed at this event, but it really set me on the right path to really understanding the issues that I was bringing back to work through in my own organisation, in that much more broader sense. The top line of the photographs are when I went on a trip to Afghanistan with the Australian Human Rights Commissioner, Sex Discrimination Commissioner. At the time, I was part of our CDF, our Chief of Defence Forces Gender Equality Advisory Board, which was a high-level board that included the Sex Discrimination Commissioner. And at the time, our chief invited her to go and visit with our troops deployed to Afghanistan. And this is one of my very first points that I want to make with you all, is take your opportunities when you see them. So she needed someone to escort her on that visit from the military. So I put my hand up and asked the Chief of Defence if I could be her escort on that trip. And he gave me that opportunity, which was amazing. And by doing that, I got to have a really good insight into the work that was going on to increase the women's participation in Afghanistan. I got to speak one-on-one to women, and again, really enrich my experience as a gender advisor. Next slide, please. This slide depicts my my best work. So this was, as the Chief Gender Advisor, I also became the Director of Gender Programs for Air Force. So my focus when I was in charge of gender programs was to increase the participation of women in non-traditional roles. So I'm talking about, from an Air Force perspective, I'm talking about pilots, engineers, and the technical workforce. So there's a few images up there. The first one on the top left is what we did first, which was create our gender equality strategy. And in that, we really examined like the strategic workforce details, which Commodore Ablett spoke about, because you need to understand what you want to get at the end and how you're going to get there. So you need to really understand the data and the numbers. So we did that. And then we worked out, from that, where we could target our efforts. And that included both the attraction and recruitment of women to our organisation, but also the retention and making sure that if we're bringing women in, we still don't want to lose them out the other side. So we developed a group called the Women's Integrated Networking Group, WINGS, suitable name for an Air Force networking group. And that's still running today. And that's a very strong network that's geographically based, because Australia is such a big country and not all women on all bases have the same issues. So it's an organically run network, geographically dispersed, and it's very, very powerful. We also had a development forum for women, and they have been continuing every 2 years. And the image at the top is my program that I developed, which is called Air Force Flight Camp or Air Force Tech Camp. And that was a program that invited young women aged between 16 and 18 who were probably not thinking about a career in the Air Force or in the military, but we invited them to come onto a base for a week, and we gave them an experiential to kind of break down those issues. So we had research that said, young women are worried about the physical fitness tests. They're worried about, can they have children? All the things, what it's like to be a woman. They all said anyone at recruiting wanted to speak to a woman who was in the military. They didn't want to speak to a civilian recruiter. So I developed this program, and I went for a week, and we didn't bombard these women with PowerPoints. We exposed them to the women that are doing the jobs. We took them flying. Some of them got to fly aircraft themselves with an instructor. On their technical camp, they were in the workshop for about 4 days and ended up building something. So it was a really great way for these women to kind of network and understand the military. But the best bit about it was then we had this cohort of women that we knew and we could mentor from our headquarters, and we could watch them as they applied to join the military. And when they hit a barrier, we knew. And if it was a barrier that we hadn't been aware of, we could intervene and say, okay, well, this is the barrier. Why, recruiting, why did you knock this person back? What was the issue here? And it led to quite a few changes in our recruiting process. We ended up getting rid of one of our psychometrics psychology tests and things like that. So it was a really, really powerful program, and it's still running today. And I think it has been replicated in a couple of countries. Can I have the next slide, please? I'm just conscious of time. So then the next piece I really want to talk about here is in 2020, I deployed to Iraq, Baghdad, Iraq, as a gender advisor to the 3-star general in charge of the coalition. And it was a really terrific deployment, but it was not without its challenges. So, gender advising in a military context is still very much, in an operational sense, is still very much a learning curve for many of our colleagues. So as the gender advisor there, I did have some really interesting experiences, which is why I put down, if they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair. Because I did I did actually have the experience of going into a planning meeting where I was the only woman. I was the gender advisor, but I was a wing commander, so I was equal rank to, you know, 70 to 80% of the people there. And they had set out the name tags and the seats around the table. And I got in there and I looked around, walked around the table, did it twice, couldn't see my name, and I found my name and my title in the kind of the back corner on a chair. And there were a lot of people around that table that day, and probably there was probably about 6 people of my rank or lower who weren't actually briefing. I had a briefing spot and I did not have a seat at the table. So I was fuming internally. You know, externally I was doing what we always do. I was being professional, sitting there, you know, ready to, you know, make my contribution. And I was really disappointed because the person leading the meeting from Baghdad was an Australian colonel. So I was really disappointed that that had occurred. And we were having a meeting with Kuwait. So the general that we were briefing was on the big screen down the end. So anyway, when it came around for the gender advisor to provide the briefing, I stood up, I picked up my chair, and I walked it across to the table and sat it down right next to the colonel. And he was at the head of the table and the general was at the other end. And I sat my chair down and I briefed. And I felt like a boss, you know, but it was really hard to do. But I kind of saw that as my opportunity to say, look, no, this is, you know, if I'm a gender advisor, you know, I have just as much right to be around this table and provide this briefing as everybody else. So that was a really, you know, an opportunity for me to kind of, you know, make my mark, I guess, and ensure that people knew who I was. So that was pretty great. But as from the photos you can see there, I had the opportunity as a gender advisor in Iraq to talk a lot with women who are serving in the military there, both in Iraq and Erbil, Kurdistan, and also up in Syria. So I had the opportunity to speak with the Women's Protection Units, the YPJ, you may have heard of them, and really learn again from their experiences and what they have, you know, I guess their challenges, you know, their kind of motivations for joining, or, you know, all that really rich information that we learn and hear from each other. What I have found, and what not just from this posting, this deployment, but from, you know, all those other interactions I've had with women around the globe, is that it always comes back to the same things. It might be a different context, but the conversation is so often the same. It's about, you know, having the opportunity to access training, having the opportunity to be chosen to go on deployment, having, you know, the opportunity to be seen for promotion and those types of things. So that is something I definitely have learned. Okay, next slide, please. So now to get to my UN posting, which, as I said at the beginning, is really, really fabulous. So UN Women have, you know, 3 main goals. Obviously, the elimination of discrimination against women and girls, the empowerment of women, and the achievement of equality between women and men as partners and beneficiaries of development, human rights, humanitarian action, and peace and security. So I'm absolutely delighted to be working for this organisation, and I am the only military member on staff. So the Australian Defence Force actually seconds my position, so they fully fund my position in the UN Women organisation, which is, you know, an amazing commitment by Australia and an amazing opportunity for me. So the key parts that I work on is really the participation of women in peacekeeping operations. So I have had contact with some of your Fijian colleagues who have deployed on peacekeeping operations in the past. And I manage the Female Military Officers course, which is a 10-day, usually residential course where we invite women from all over the globe to come together and to learn about, you know, peacekeeping operations, and certainly focusing on also how to respond to and deal with issues around conflict-related sexual and gender-based violence and the like. So that is something that I love doing. I haven't had the opportunity to attend a course physically due to COVID, but it's something that I would recommend to you women, if you can, is to get on board with this course and see if you're able to attend. We're running a virtual, we're running the courses virtually at the moment in different time zones. So I can actually share the information with Vinny later on, and she can share that with the network. Attendees from the Global South are funded also by the program, so which is really terrific. I also represent UN Women at conferences and into NATO and events like this, which I just love doing. The other thing that I do is I actually am now the chair of the Women's Military Network in New York. So that's like you, I do that in my spare time, but it's a fantastic network because it is a global network as well. Because in New York, we have women from all different countries either in UN jobs or working for the permanent missions. Yeah, so it's really fantastic. I just want to flag before I finish off that also the the Generation Equality Forum is occurring in Mexico in March. And I would encourage everyone to kind of follow along with that because it's, billed to be the biggest collection of kind of advocates and organizational commitments to gender equality since the Beijing platform in 20 years ago, last year. So I just wanted to put in a plug for that as well. Okay, so next slide. So back to the beginning. That's where I started in the Northwest Coastal Forest, and all the yellow stars of where I've been and where I've been able to, either be posted or deploy or do events. I was going to put tags down where I've met women and dealt with women, but I realized then that it would have covered the entire page by now. So it's just a real representation to say to you, don't be limited by where you are or where you live. You can, like me, find yourself ending up somewhere like working for UN Women. I hope you can. Certainly chase those opportunities when they come. I also, like Commodore Ablett and Commodore Ablett, am very, very fortunate that my husband also has taken off 3 years as a doctor. I think he was kind of happy about it, to follow me to New York and support me in this role. So, I am really, really lucky to have that support as well to help me do it. It's been a really challenging career, but it's definitely been worth it. And I just want to finish with my last slide, which is just my tips that I give to anyone that I mentor. And I do mentor a lot of women from my time as running the flight camps and those types of things. And it's the advice I live by as well. So could I just have the last slide one more time, please? So my first piece of advice is do not take no from anybody who does not have the authority to say yes. So as a woman in the military, as a gender advisor, so many times I've come up against, the next person in line in the decision, or the person who's writing the operational plan, or the person who has the ability to progress something that I want to take forward. And my advice is, if they don't have the authority to say yes to what you want, well then politely say thanks very much for your feedback and then take it to the person who can say yes to what you want. My second piece of advice is support other women. And you are doing this, which I love. Don't pull the ladder up behind you. So if you succeed and you have the opportunity then to bring someone with you, bring them with you. Okay, because always remember that you had to climb the ladder that someone came before. Okay, we're all following in someone's footsteps, so it's really important not to pull the ladder up behind you. Third, build your networks. #squad goals. Okay, I cannot emphasize that enough. Like the power that you get from other women and from networks like this, this one that you are all a member of is so powerful, and it's a real opportunity to drive change and take policy ideas and interventions to the chain of command and things like that. The last one, second last one, take your opportunities when you see them. So this photo is from New York. It's the Air Force had a dining in night, like a thing, but we had to do it virtually. So for once in my life, I was able to wear my slippers rather than my heels to an event. And so I see that as taking my opportunity when I saw it. So, so absolutely, if you get the chance, if someone opens a door, try to take it, walk through it and just see what might happen for you. That photo is a bit tongue in cheek, but definitely it's there. And then challenge yourself. Always continue to challenge yourself. Different environments can always be intimidating, but we as women suffer so much from imposter syndrome, where we often think we don't belong to where we are, or we shouldn't be speaking about what we want to speak about. But you do belong. We do belong, and our voices are important as everybody else's. So challenge yourself and don't, just challenge yourself. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mom. It's just amazing. Like the CEO had said, words of honing in your study, honing in what you know, honing in your work, and yet you just showed how that is implemented in the footsteps that you've taken, and especially those golden nuggets that you take the opportunities. And I love the fact, especially those do not pull the ladder from under, from behind you, because we are so thankful this evening as well that we've got many women like yourselves who are throwing the ladders at us, basically showing us which ladders to climb, and with these strong words of advice. So thank you very much for that as well, Commander Kennealy. I do apologize. So without further ado, coming to our last speaker of the evening as well. Well, I'd like to introduce Andy Sivia Qoro. Mom, thank you for your patience. Andy Sivia Qoro is the president of Unity Fiji. She has, and I do apologize, I didn't mention her in the beginning, quite a substantive experience as well in her knowledge and in her work, predominantly back home in Fiji, in the rural areas with women and children, but also in the international level, working for Oxfam, and in Europe as well, with all the research that she has done to bring a better Fiji for what we know as well. So I'd like to introduce Andy Sivia Qoro, President of Unity Fiji. Mom.
Nakavini, just to test, can you all hear me properly?
Yep, thank you, we can hear you.
Thanks, Vinny. Just as an introductory remark this morning, I would like to say good morning to everyone and wishing you all a very happy International Women's Day. Ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed an honor and a privilege to be invited to speak to you all from wherever you are listening from. I want to sincerely thank the organizers of this virtual forum for the invitation. To you all, Binakabakalewu. I also want to congratulate the Fijian Servicewomen UK for taking these bold steps to establish an organization or a platform that brings together all servicewomen who share a common heritage from being from the Republic of Fiji to reach their maximum potential. Let me begin, in addition to what Vinny has alluded to, a short introduction of myself. My name is Sivia Qoro. I'm currently engaged as an international consultant, and I work in Africa, the Middle East, Asia, and the Pacific region. Interestingly, Commander Kennealy, I heard you speaking about your experience in Afghanistan. I have worked there repeatedly and still continue to do so. I'm also an evaluation and monitoring specialist, a gender and development expert, and accomplished researcher with a number of publications under my name. As an individual and a woman, I traverse and navigate a number of spaces and still continue to do so today. At a personal level, as a mother, like some of you who are listening in, we are having to cope with family and a career. it's all about work-life balance. As a professional, I started out working as a government employee in a number of central agencies within the Fiji government. I was a Fiji diplomat. I worked in a regional organization, the Secretariat of the Pacific Community in New Caledonia. I was also Minister for Trade and Commerce in 2006, and now an international consultant. I'm a community leader and member, and I continue to serve in a number of national NGOs, non-governmental organizations. In the political space, I'm currently president of the Unity Fiji Party, which was established in 2017. There were 3 founding members for this party, and I was one of them. Now let me focus on why we are gathered together on this platform today. On reflection, I asked the question, why International Women's Day? It is about celebrating our achievements as women in the different areas that we engage in. The day also marks a call to action for accelerating gender parity. I will share very briefly with you some of Fiji's experiences. A number of achievements have been made, but we also continue to lag in a number of areas. At the Pacific regional level, the Pacific Island Forum Secretariat, a regional institution here in the Pacific, has prioritized the need to improve gender equality. And this includes the implementation of human rights treaties, such as CEDAW, and the Temporary Special Measures, which is TSM. The revised Pacific Platform for Action, PPA, for Women 2005 to 2015 also recommended that governments in the Pacific take affirmative action in policies and practice and enhance gender equality in the political representation. A plan that I directed and developed when working for SPC. To date, there has been no successor to this plan. At the national level, the government of Fiji ratified CEDAW in 1995. In 1998, I was part of a team that developed the first Women's Plan of Action, 1998 to 2008, for the government of Fiji. Working for the Ministry of Women, I was directly responsible for the review of laws that were disadvantaged to women. As a ministry, we made submissions to the review of the family law, the reform of the criminal law where women's issues are taken into account, the review of the penal code, particularly the sexual offenses provisions. Currently, the government has started its own national consultations on the 5-year National Action Plan 2021 to 2026 to prevent violence against women and girls in Fiji. I will now discuss our issues in which Fiji continues to lag behind and also affects the participation of women at decision-making level. The first of this issue is domestic violence. 64% of our women in Fiji who had been in an intimate relationship had experienced physical or sexual violence from their partners. This involves rape, attempted rape, and child abuse. The government statistics itself states that 61% were physically attacked, while 34% were sexually abused. In 2019, 10 women died due to domestic violence in Fiji. What has been done to address this problem? Here, the role of NGOs have been critical, as well as government, of course. The Women's Crisis Center works with police and relevant stakeholders to address the issue of domestic violence. The House of Sarah works on the prevention of violence. with churches and church communities. And as I've alluded to, the government itself has already launched its consultation on its own National Action Plan for Violence Against Women. As Vice President for the Homes of Hope, an NGO that we do have here in Fiji, we work to provide long-term care, support, and holistic restoration for girls, young women, children who are victims of or vulnerable to forced sex. We provide residential campuses for prenatal and postnatal cases. We work with communities to raise their awareness on this issue. And we also provide training and social enterprise courses to those affected so that when they are finished from the campuses, they are able to find work for themselves. In terms of poverty, the pre-COVID poverty rate in Fiji in 2020 stood at 24.2%. That's a total of 210,963 people living in poverty. That's a quarter of the population of Fiji right now. Of this poverty rate, in the urban areas, we have 16.76%. That's 73,000 people. In the rural areas, we have 31.9%. Surprisingly, it's more higher in the rural areas than in the urban areas. In terms of economic empowerment, as president of Rise Beyond the Reef, we work to bridge the divide between remote communities and creating better world for our women and children. Through our traditional contemporary arts and crafts income generating programs, first, we give women an opportunity to develop leadership skills. Second, we work with women crafters to earn much needed income. Thirdly, we help to develop regional and international markets for these goods. And we are doing that as we speak now. The last but not the least, the program helps preserve and promote traditional arts and craft skills for our Indigenous women. Let me come to the topic of women in decision making. In 1995, the government of Fiji made a commitment to achieve a 30% women in parliament. During the 2018 elections, 12 out of 51 were elected into parliament were women, which represents only 23.5%. We have not reached our target made 26 years ago. As part of the solution, and I'm part of this discussion group, a proposal among the opposition political parties to adopt a 30% threshold on the temporary special measures is now in discussion to be applied in the upcoming election in 2022. Yes, we have made strides, but there's still more work to be done. And ladies, in conclusion, I leave you with this message, which not only applies to you as members of the FSUK, women, but also women in the tri-service, but for us here in Fiji who have started and are still on this journey. Like they say, the beginning is half done. First the willingness to do something. Once that is done, there is no looking back. FSUK, you have started. Follow your dreams and your passions. Life is meant to be lived to the full. Work hard to achieve your maximum potential because you can. Ladies, that's my sharing with you on this platform. And I hope it has been, will generate some thoughts and discussions, and you will have some takeaways from what I've shared with you So with that, Binaka Bakalevu.
So Mrs. Ngoro, President Nakma Malova Levu, Navasani Vandre. To all the women, thank you very much for those words. It is definitely raised an awareness for us as women. Thank you for those words, to leaving us with those words, the fact that we have started and we can only move forward, and we can see there's a lot to do, but not only to the FSUK, but also in a way that we can invest in our time back home and seeing ways that we can bring forth and encourage women to stand up. And what a wonderful way to follow women such as yourself, who are even making a difference, even empowering Indigenous women on how to, to empower their hands and their produce to try and make things that they can actually give out back into the community. So it's going to take this opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, to quickly, as we're coming to a close, to try and quickly introduce the team that have put this together. Though I may be here as host, but a big array of team in the committee of the FSUK, and I'd just like to introduce each and every person they're actually all here as well. Introducing our chair lady, Lemba Lisa Rokayandre, who is the Warrant Officer Class 2 in the British Army. Lemba is our chair lady, and she's also the founder of Fijian Service Women UK, who had the courage to she had a vision and reached out to the rest of the ladies and seeking advice and to what is now FSUK. Etta Tora, our General Secretary. Etta is a petty officer serving the Royal Navy. She has been there for 11 years as well. In addition to FSUK, Etta also works in support of the Commonwealth and actively does so for the Commonwealth community and the Royal Navy Welfare Department. Our consultant, our legal consultant, Ms. Sala Nieta Tamani Kaiwaimaro. Sala, we call her Nieta. She is the consultant who's actually been assisting the FSUK. She's a qualified barrister and a solicitor enrolled in the High Court of Fiji. She's also a founder of global think tank, Pacifica Nexus, and she maintains a regular blog on Circle ID. Our public relations liaison is Ma Nata Boila. She's a former Royal Navy Human Resources Administrator, having served the Royal Navy for 10 years. Quite passionate actually about helping others in the community. And the t-shirts that you see majority of the FSUK are wearing is the product of the business that Ma runs on a personal level as well. So thank you, Ma, for the wonderful t-shirts. Grace Rangio is one of our young service women as well. Grace is serving in the RAF, how shall I say, an innovative individual, works actively with the youth, not only on the Christian Mission Fellowship platform. She's also a founder as well for Faith in Motion. So Grace Rengio is our engagement lead for engaging with other networks and with our youths as well. Alessi Vode Tonga is a military disciplinary advisor. Alessi has served in the military for 18 years and hails from the island of Kandavu. She engages in the Fijian community as well and normally deals with any sort of welfare questions that we may have. So that is a quick run through of our teams. All the information in their bio in the FSUK website. I do apologize. I am very aware that we are running over time. So our last agenda of the day is in recognition, celebrating some of our young achievers, the first of many young Fijians who've achieved things that not, even like the trailblazers that have spoken today. So these recognition, have they been nominated from people in the Fijian diaspora community, and we'd like to take this opportunity to celebrate and recognize their achievement. Since the Fijian servicewomen first joined the Majesty Armed Forces in 1960, women have always been the minority. The historical story of Army statistics between 1900 and 2000, in 1999, there were only 10 women in the entire British Army, which rose to 1920 in 2007. This is the entire gender counter, not just Fijian servicewomen. In the midst of his journey, it is important to celebrate the achievements of servicewomen across the tri-services in the UK. Here are but a few snapshots of their stories.
Luisa Liku Ruamboila is the first Fijian servicewoman to receive an MBE. Luisa is she was awarded the MBE in 2013 whilst a corporal with the Adjutant General Corps. The next female is, we'd like to recognize, acknowledge the achievement of Private Salaniata Yadake of the 1st York Infantry Regiment, originally from the village of Waimbasanga, Wainimala, Naitasiri in Fiji. Sala created history as the first female to have ever successfully completed the British Army infantry training from the Infantry Training Center, Catterick, on 17 September 2020. She was further awarded the Best Endeavour Award given to the trainee who shown remarkable determination and commitment. And a keen sportswoman, she enjoys netball and volleyball and traveling. A first Fijian infantry guardsman, Manungalo Pomaitai, who became the first infantry guardsman, being the first of Anything Takes Courage, and we applaud Guardsman Pomaitai for this wonderful achievement. The first Fijian servicewomen to be commissioned. We salute Captain Kelera Tiko, amazing journey. She joined the British Army in 2000 and was enlisted into the Royal Electrical and Mechanical Engineer Corps for in 2002, she graduated as the first Fijian avionics technician in the British Army, aside from serving in various different posts over the years, fixing helicopters, tanks, comms, radios, and more. Within the 20 years she had served in the Army, she has climbed from a craftsman, equivalent to a private soldier, to a warrant officer class 1, and then to captain. In the history of Fijian servicewomen, she is the first woman to commission. Andi Bola Qoro, a Fijian servicewomen are not just competent in workforce, they are also making an impact outside the workplace in sports. Andi Bola Qoro serves with Her Majesty Armed Forces with the Royal Engineer Corps, and whose love and passion for sports has enabled her to take her love for sports into the World Cup and Super League as a defender. Lastly, Taraivini Tui Vanga. She's a marine engineer and has been in the Royal Navy for 7 years. In this time, the Fijians had served on HMS Dauntless in the Gulf and was part of the HMS Queen Elizabeth's crew when the ship arrived for the first time in Portsmouth, Vinaka.
Ladies and gentlemen, and to the great panels of speakers that we've had this evening, we've come to the conclusion of our evening, and I think a reflection of the caliber of the panel that we've had, and the words of encouragement that we have received, that you've planted in our lives, we've not had any questions. I think everyone is just so overwhelmed. We've kind of fed on inspiration, and it's just overflowing. And just to touch base, Mom, and a few things kind of resonated towards the speakings tonight, from the beginning of the words that was even shared by Pastor Mayor. To do not look down at yourself. Never compare yourself to another woman. Hold each other's crowns. To the words by Commodore Ablett, seeking opportunities, trying to understand the statistics and answer, asking the questions and enhancing, enhancing women in the service and trying to understand where we are, and how we can go forward. To the words from the Commonwealth Technical Officer, Ms. Bernadette Lewis, Mom, thank you very much for those words that encourage me, saying being a peculiar woman, and knowing who we are and what we bring to the table and doing it gracefully. Thank you very much for those words. To Wing Commander Kennealy, thank you for the words of advice of, not being afraid to take non-traditional roles, asking the question of being aware of what the barriers are and then trying to implement the changes. We've discussed this even as FSUK members in asking those questions and even leading up to Sivia Qoro to be, even putting out papers and research and trying to implement this change, not only, towards our level, but through policy. And hopefully one day, hearing all you women speak, one day we will get there as a network, as a group of women, to make changes, to make our voice heard, and not only that way, to add to diversity, to add to inclusion, to add to multiculturalism. Thank you very much to the panel of speakers. Thank you to each and every individual that have tuned in tonight to celebrate International Women's Day. Not only that, as a member of the Commonwealth nations, Tikolevu, Malo. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Well done.
Thank you so much, Ms. Lewis. Thank you so much, Commodore. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Great. Absolutely marvelous. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis.
Okay.
Bye, everybody.
Great. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Lewis. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.